Support comes from ServiceNow. We're for people doing the creative work they actually want to do. That's why this ad was written and read by a real person and not AI. You know what people don't want to do? Boring, busy work. Now with AI agents built into the ServiceNow platform, you can automate millions of repetitive tasks in every corner of your business, IT, HR, and more, so your people can focus on the work that they want to do. That's putting AI agents to work for people. It's your turn. Visit servicenow.com.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
This is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. I always love the opportunity to talk to Jeffrey Lichtman, not only because he has so much information and expertise in just about anything, but he has an opinion about just about everything, and he is not afraid to hold back whatever that subject is. He will give you his unadulterated opinion, and whether you agree with him, whether you disagree with him, chances are whatever he's saying is something you're not going to be able to change the channel on, and it's something that you're going to find entertaining, whether you agree or not. Now, if you're new to the program, and we're picking up new listeners all the time, very lucky to have new listeners, and you've never heard Jeffrey before, you are in for a treat, and you're about to hear why. Very, very pleased to welcome to the program veteran criminal defense attorney and the host of the Beyond the Legal Limit podcast, Jeffrey Lichtman. Jeffrey, great to talk with you. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Frank.
All right, let's get the tough questions out of the way first. Baseball season's now about 2 weeks old. What do you think of the Mets so far?
Well, I'm a little disgusted with Diaz. He had another implosion today. I think that the funniest part of the season for me is that the one guy they desperately tried not to sign, Pete Alonso, has carried the team on his back really by himself. I mean, Soto hasn't done much yet. I'm sure he will. He's, one of the greatest players of all time. But Pete Alonso is the reason that they've got pretty much any wins this year. So it's good to see that.
It certainly is. Last year they kind of had a slow start too, and they obviously did really well, making it to the NLCS. What do you see as the long-term prognosis?
Look, there's a handful of teams in the National League that I think can win the pennant. You've got, obviously, the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Diamondbacks in the West. And in the East, I thought that the Braves was one of the three teams, along with the Phillies and the Mets. It looks like the Braves, due to injuries and just bad play, it may not happen for them this year. So I think the Mets have a chance. I think they need to win their division if they can, but the Phillies are very, very tough. They've got probably the best pitching in baseball this year.
All right, let's talk about Sean P. Diddy Combs. He is just a couple of weeks away from standing trial. Now, apparently, they're getting ready to add a new sex trafficking charge to the federal indictment against him. For people that don't know, you've been the attorney, and I presume you still are, for Diddy's son, Justin. What do you make of this in terms of where you see this case going? First of all, are you surprised this case is going to trial? Second, how does it look objectively?
Well, I'm not surprised it's going to trial because I'm sure, they're not exactly offering him anything fair. The issue that they're doing now on the eve of trial, and this is legal, it's called 404B evidence, Federal Rule of Evidence 404B, which is evidence of defendants' prior crimes, wrongs, or acts which are being introduced. They're not charges, but they're being introduced to prove motive, opportunity, intent, preparation, plan, knowledge, identity, absence of mistake, etc. And what it ends up doing is by putting in all these very old allegations of sexual assault and whatnot, is that it prejudices the jury to want to convict him because they're thinking, well, he may only be charged with a handful of crimes, but all these other bad acts, he's a bad guy.
How often have we seen that in mafia cases where they throw everything in the kitchen sink for charges that aren't even in the case?
Yep, and that's exactly what they're doing here is he's charged with a RICO conspiracy, and they're using all of these bad acts to really just bury him. In the end, I actually think he's got a very decent shot because, most of this stuff can be explained away is that the so-called victims consented. These weren't children. These weren't people that were unable to say no. They were adults. And a lot of the reason why they were, in these freak-off parties and they were having all this sex is because they wanted to get something from Diddy. They wanted either a job or they wanted an opportunity. And that's really, I think, the defense. And I think it's a believable defense. So I actually think he has a shot. I'm reading some stuff we've all read that he's looking to hire other lawyers. I mean, now is not exactly the time that you want to hire lawyers. I'm sure he's nervous. I'm sure he's scared. He's facing potentially the rest of his life in prison for, respectfully, I say this, it's not exactly the crimes of the century. I think the feds have gone way too heavy on him, and I hope actually that he pulls out of this and wins.
But you think he has a shot of doing just that?
Not even a question. I don't think this is exactly the hardest trial. And it's similar to the Harvey Weinstein case. Again, this is a trial where, all of these women, they were adults and they had sex because they wanted to get on his good side and they wanted jobs. And a lot of them even admitted that. And a lot of them were friends with him after they supposedly got raped. So I always thought that Harvey Weinstein would win that first trial. Harvey's a guy that I know. And your listeners are going to hate me by the time this is over. I'm supporting Diddy and I'm supporting Harvey Weinstein. I mean, who's next? I mean, next thing I'm going to put in defense for Satan, perhaps. But I actually think that Weinstein could win his trial as well.
I want to ask you about Weinstein in a second, but just before we move on from Sean P. Diddy Combs, I see that Cassie Ventura is going to be testifying in this trial. She's the one that was caught on that video, which was widely disseminated, of him, just beating her. And then there was a lawsuit where presumably she got a very generous settlement. I would think she has the potential to be a very compelling witness. If you were representing Combs in this trial, how concerned would you be about her testimony?
Well, you've got to be gentle. You don't want to beat up a woman on the stand there's video showing that she's gotten the crap kicked out of her in a hotel corridor. But at the same time, respectfully, Frank, we've seen some very, very bad trials. I've had some, very serious cases, whether it was John Gotti or Chapo Guzman, who I represented. I mean, these were scary cases. This is a case, respectfully, it's domestic violence. I'm not downplaying it. I'm not suggesting that it's awful, but you're going to put a guy in jail for 20 years because he got into a physical altercation with Cassie? I mean, come on. Again, I'm not suggesting for a second that it's not important. I just don't think that it's worth him spending the rest of his life in prison for.
30 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. All right, on to Harvey Weinstein. That case is coming up. They had a pretrial hearing on this yesterday. It sounds like, based on what you're saying, you think Harvey may be in a pretty good position on this one as well.
Yeah, but look, he lost the first trial in New York. He lost the trial in California. The case was reversed. The conviction was reversed in New York, part of it, because of the very thing that they're trying to do to Sean Combs, is they were introducing all of these other bad act evidence, and it just went too far, and it caused the jury to convict him instead of focusing on the actual charges in the case. I expect in the Combs case that the judge will not let all of this bad act evidence in, and I think that it will be certainly significantly limited in the Weinstein case. Again, all of these women, for the most part, they were there because they wanted to get close to him because they thought he had a lot of power, which he did, and they wanted to get jobs. And a lot of them, as I said, were emailing him and loving him and kissy face and smoochy face, sending him notes after he supposedly raped them. I think Harvey Weinstein, was really the victim of the first really, scalp of the Me Too movement. I think that the world has moved past that, and this guy is dying in prison. I don't think he deserves to die in prison. Again, I'm not suggesting that all of his actions, were good. I'm just saying I don't think the man should die in prison because a bunch of women wanted to sleep with him for a job.
You mentioned your representation of both John Gotti Jr. and El Chapo. Now, you brought this up in your opening statement in the Gotti case. I remember you said, look, if you think Gotti, you think criminal, right? You think, let's face it, let's all acknowledge. You said to the jury, you think Trump, you think money, and you think Gotti, you think criminal. The fact of the matter is, when it comes to Weinstein, because he has had two very damaging criminal trials and because he was the poster child of being a Me Too villain, a lot of people just view him as a bad guy. Looking past the evidence and the fact that a lot of these sexual liaisons may have been transactional, essentially, isn't that tough to overcome when the whole world views someone as an evil ogre, as I think a lot of the world views Weinstein? Does that create a defense that is insurmountable?
I don't think so. I mean, this isn't a guy that's alleged to, have murdered people, poisoned people with drugs. He doesn't have any kind of history of violence, at least in terms of what the public thinks up until these cases were brought against him. I mean, this was a very successful movie producer. So I think that can easily be moved past. And I think that when you start talking about the Me Too movement to a jury in 2025, Frank, it's a hell of a lot different than when you're talking to them about it in 2019. And I think that the jury will realize, my God, we as a society went way too far with that stuff, and this guy suffered for it. So I actually think, listen, I could do that opening statement tomorrow.
Then he's got the California case to deal with, obviously one thing at a time. But do you think he has any chance of getting out of that one as well?
I think for the same reason that the New York conviction was overturned, I think there's certainly a chance. It's tough. I mean, he's elderly. He's certainly not well. He's got enough time that he's got to do in the California case that will ensure that he probably dies in prison. But remember, he wasn't convicted of everything in California either. I mean, this was back when things were much worse. The political climate was much worse for him, and he wasn't convicted of everything in California either. I actually think that he's going to win in New York, and I felt that way before the first trial in New York. And I remember saying it publicly in some interview I was doing, and his then lawyer called me up and he's like, "What are you doing? You're saying that that Harvey's going to win?" I'm like, "Dude, isn't that what you want me to say to the public?" I think he felt a little pressure that he had to win. Well, he ended up getting off the case anyway. It didn't make a difference.
PMS, pregnancy, menopause. Being a woman is a lot. Ollie supports you and yours with expert solutions for every age and life stage. They just launched 2 new products exclusively at Walmart. Period Hero combats bloat, mood swings, and more during PMS. And Balance Perimeno to support hormonal balance, mood, and metabolism during perimenopause. Grab yours at ollie.com. Ollie! These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Clorox Sentiva smells like grapefruit. Cleans like Clorox. And feels like...
Okay, we could be here all day. Try Clorox Sentiva for a trusted clean with long-lasting freshness. Also available in lavender and coconut. Use as directed.
The #1 selling product of its kind with over 20 years of research and innovation. Botox Cosmetic, onabotulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
Faraday presenta Ojos con Alergia y Picazón contra el jardinero. Y el ganador es Faraday Extra Fuerte. Para aliviar la picazón de los ojos por alergia, actúa más rápido y supera a Claritin y Flonase aún a las 24 horas. Faraday, adelante.
If you're just tuning in, this is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. My guest is Jeffrey Lichtman. You can hear him regularly on Beyond the Legal Limit, a terrific podcast. And if you're ever arrested, again, the more serious crime, the better as far as this supposition goes. He is somebody whose number you want to keep handy. And if you ever find yourself being cross-examined by him, the best thing you could do is just throw in the towel early, as my friend Curtis Sliwa can attest. By the way, speaking of Curtis, he's running for mayor again, but apparently he's not the only one. You got a disgraced former governor, Andrew Cuomo, running. You have a couple of, and this is not me calling a name, this is how they describe themselves, a couple of socialist candidates running, and Eric Adams, who dodged a major bullet with some pretty serious federal crimes. He's running, but now he's running as an independent. What do you see in terms of the mayor's race in New York this year, Jeffrey?
I mean, first of all, I just vomited into a bucket when you mentioned all the people that are actually running for mayor. It's that disgusting of a pool, and it mirrors the way New York City looks now, which is a cesspool as well. So it's not surprising that people are running are complete savage lowlifes. Eric Adams, I mean, obviously, is a criminal. He was a man on the take for a Muslim terror state, Turkey, obviously guilty as hell. And what I would say, and I keep hearing his lawyers say, the case was so weak. The case was so overwhelmingly strong, he would have been convicted in 2 seconds. And if this is a guy who was so certain about his innocence, Frank, why did he have to accept the case being dismissed from Trump? He should have said, no, it's more important that I prove my innocence to the New Yorkers that I represent. I'm going to be in the Southern District of New York. These are my constituents. Let me go to trial and prove my innocence. Instead, this guy begged on his knees, literally was on his knees to get this case dismissed, and he promised to basically be a puppet for Trump with regard to illegal immigration. This is a guy that once said New York was a sanctuary city. Now he's doing all that he can to help Trump. Of course, that's not stopping him from allowing Hamas to take over Grand Central. The other night, Eric Adams was in the club. He was fixing his jewelry in his ears, drinking that Courvoisier, Frank. And he is probably not the worst candidate, which is shocking. You've got that Muslim terror supporter whose name I don't recall. He's running socialist. Yeah. Whatever. What is his name? Osama bin Laden. Is that what you said? Anyway, and then you've got Andrew Cuomo, who I obviously can't stand. He once threatened to have me arrested when I was a very young lawyer. Horrible human being, just absolutely disgusting. He botched the whole COVID situation, got plenty of people killed in nursing homes that he shouldn't have. This is a really bad set of candidates. Curtis, as insane as he is, and he legitimately is insane, is probably the best candidate.
And you're no fan of this Jim Walden as well, who's running as an independent, are you?
God. No, not at all. I mean, he's just, another backslapping lawyer, telling us how to live our lives. I can't bear it, Frank. Just another hypocrite. No, you've got to get somebody who I think genuinely wants to help the city instead of just genuinely wanting to help themselves. I don't know who it is. I don't know who's going to win, but it is an abortion of a race if there ever was one.
All right, moving on to another controversial subject. President Trump is freezing. His administration is freezing a whole bunch of money, I think $1.8 billion in funding to Cornell, to Northwestern. This is over anti-Semitism. Northwestern University specifically, and we got a big audience in Chicago listening to us on WGN right now. They've been at the center of several anti-Semitic controversies. And a lot of people in academia not happy about this. They feel this is unfair. I don't know of a more vocal opponent of anti-Semitism than you. How do you feel about what the Trump administration is doing to these schools?
Well, I appreciate what he's doing. It's just not nearly enough. I mean, he's frozen, $1.8 billion, I think you said, over a bunch of schools, Columbia, Brown, Northwestern. It's not enough. These schools have 10, 12, $13 billion endowments, and taking a few bucks from them isn't going to stop. What he needs to do is take every single foreign student that attended one of these Hamas rallies on campus and pull their visas immediately. Pull them immediately, have them picked up, have them sent back to whatever Muslim terror. Am I allowed to curse on this, Frank?
No.
Yes, right?
Terrestrial radio.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, you know what I'm thinking. Whatever blank hole that they came from, send them back. That's the only way to do this. He's got to tell these schools you're going to have to figure out a way to get rid of the jihadist professors that are all over the campus. Certainly Northwestern is disgusting. It's bad there. Also, Georgetown is another place. You've got a professor at Georgetown whose father-in-law was convicted as a Palestinian terrorist and deported. His wife worked for Al Jazeera. This is a guy that is openly supporting Hamas, and nobody cares. This is normal. After 9/11, you've got Muslim terror professors and Muslim terror students all over these campuses. Listen, people went to Northwestern, which is a great university. They sent their kids to learn. They're spending $80,000 a year, Frank, to learn at Northwestern, one of the top universities on the planet. Instead, they're dodging jihadists wearing keffiyehs, screaming Jew this and Jew that, and praising Hamas for October 7th. No, that's not going to, it just can't exist in America. These students need to be pulled out, uprooted, sent back to whatever dump they came from in the Middle East, and America has to take these schools back. The conservatives allowed leftists to run wild on these campuses and brainwash our kids, and now we're suffering for it. Look what happened is still happening in Colombia. I mean, it's every day there's violence. How do you send your kid to Colombia knowing that you're going to have to, if you're, God forbid, you're Jewish, you're going to get harassed, you're going to get abused, you're going to get attacked, you could get killed. That's not why you go to college, Frank. You go there to learn and get drunk and meet girls. That's it. Period. End of story.
No, exactly. Just lastly on this front, you have some people that are calling this essentially a fake crusade against anti-Semitism and saying that what the Trump administration is trying to do is criminalize protests and free speech. Even the Anti-Defamation League, they've taken issue with the president using the term Palestinian as a slur against Chuck Schumer, against Joe Biden. Then they've criticized Trump for that. Speak to that. People speak to the issue of folks saying that, he's penalizing campuses that allowed protests, and two, his use of the term Palestinian as an anti-Israel slur to apply to people like Chuck Schumer.
Well, let me take the last thing you said first. First of all, 95% of the Palestinian people supported October 7th after it occurred. So obviously it is a slur to any sane person. If you call someone a Palestinian, you're calling someone who wants to rape, murder children, kill civilians, and then take babies hostage and strangle them to death and then bash their heads in with rocks. So yes, it's an appropriate slur. Sorry, but it's true. Secondly, look, the Jews are always their own worst enemy. Am I surprised that leftist Jews are standing up for Hamas? Of course not, because this is what they are. This is why I'd rather have a Hamas terrorist living next door to me than a leftist Jew, because at least I know that the Hamas guy's going to try to kill me from the front. The leftist Jew is going to be stabbing me in the back. I'd rather take the Hamas terrorist. So I don't respect any of these leftist Jews, whether it's the ADL, whatever leftist crap organization it is. The fact is that these students are on campus and they do not belong here. You can exercise free speech. Nobody's saying that you can't support the Palestinians, but what you can't do, Frank, is you can't run around, carrying pictures of Hamas hang gliding into Israel and saying, glory to the martyrs and from the river to the sea, because you're talking about the annihilation of Israel. You can't do that in America. You shouldn't have been able to do that after 9/11, and you certainly shouldn't be able to do it after October 7th. It's outrageous, and eventually what's going to happen is we're going to have real terror attacks here. I mean, God knows in New York, Frank, that there's been hundreds of Muslim terror attacks on Jews in New York, and it's not going to just be Jews. I mean, they're taking over Grand Central. I don't know how many times they've done it. It's all over the country now, in all big cities. We've got to get these students out. They don't belong here. Listen, if they hate America as much as they say they do, let them go back to the dumps that they came from. They don't need to be here. Why would we want them here? What sane American would want people that glorify Hamas, glorify bin Laden, say death to America, or ripping down American flags and putting up Palestinian terror flags? Why would we ever want that? Is that free speech? That's not what the law is. They're not citizens. They don't have the right to do any of this. If they're supporting Muslim terror groups, they are in violation of the rules of their student visas. Get the F out, period.
President Trump met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu this week. Apparently, there was some issues where there was a little bit of daylight between each of their positions. Obviously, the tariff issue, Iran's nuclear program, the influence of Turkey in Syria, and maybe even what's going on with Gaza. How do you think this Trump-Netanyahu meeting went, and how do you feel about kind of the way forward between these two countries as they're led by these two men?
Well, I'm very disappointed in Netanyahu because it's on his watch that October 7th occurred, and I think his prosecution of this war has been weak. I understand that his hands were largely tied by Biden during the period that he was in office, but I'm still very disappointed with Netanyahu. With regard to Trump, I know a lot of your listeners love him. I voted for him. I support him. I'm horribly disappointed in him, but this is exactly what I expected. This is a guy that before he came into office said January 20th, if all of the hostages are not released, not just the Americans, hell is going to come to Gaza. Well, I guess he meant January 20th, 2039, Frank, because no hell came. America didn't do anything. They let Israel have a little more freedom. At the same time, with regard to Iran, all of these Muslim terror groups that are causing all of this trouble all over the world, let's say the Houthis that are stopping our ships from going through, that are costing Americans more money because they can't go through certain straits because the Houthis are bombing and stealing ships. You've got Hezbollah in Lebanon that's responsible for killing hundreds of Americans. You've got Hamas that killed Americans on October 7th. You've got even the Iranians who killed and maimed so many Americans in Afghanistan, in other wars as well. Why are we allowing Iran? And they also kidnapped 50-something Americans in 1979 for 444 days, Frank. Why are we allowing the biggest state sponsor of terror that sends killers over to America to try to kill Americans? Why are we negotiating with them? How many more years do we have to be told that this country, that this group of mullahs cannot be trusted? Israel's already taken out all of their air defenses. They've shown the world that Iran can easily be defeated. We're going to negotiate with them? They lied the last time they had the nuclear agreement. What has to be done is enough talk. They have to go in. They got to remove the mullahs. They've got to free the Iranian people. And if Iran is gone, all of their proxies dry up and disappear, and that's the way the world will become safer, when you get rid of all of Iran's terror proxies. And I think Netanyahu was largely disappointed because he heard the same old crap out of Trump. He wants a deal. Everybody wants a deal, Frank, when you're talking to Donald Trump. Deal this, deal that, the dealiest deal ever. He's got to have the greatest deal. He doesn't understand. These are people that want death. They want to die if they can kill Americans and kill Israelis. You cannot negotiate with these savages. How many more times do they have to be caught cheating and lying after making a deal before the world finally says enough is enough? It's just not happening, and I think that's what Netanyahu was severely disappointed in. He shouldn't have been surprised, though, because it's the same old with Trump.
So, lastly, you absolutely anticipated my question about Iran. Apparently, Trump wants a nuclear deal as long as it's better than Obama's. Needless to say, you're not optimistic about Trump's ability to negotiate a new Iranian nuclear deal.
Well, they'll agree to something, but they'll just break the deal like they did the last one. I mean, these people obviously can't be trusted. I mean, these are subhuman lunatics. I mean, they're death to America. How many more times we've got to hear this? They're telling us what they want to do to us. They've maimed us. They've killed us. At what point do we decide, you know what? The world is a safer place, Frank, if we get rid of the mullahs. The Iranian people want to get rid of them. We should help them. Obama didn't do anything to help them. Trump has been a lot of talk, and he's helped attack the Houthis a little bit, and he's certainly giving Israel some more weapons. I'm not saying America should go in there and do it. Let Israel do it. America can back warships. Israel can handle Iran. Are you kidding? Look what happened this year. We've already seen Israel goes in there and completely obliterates all of their defenses. Let Israel go in. Let's get it over with. We can't keep waiting and kicking the can down the road, Frank, because eventually they're going to get nukes. And then they're going to be like North Korea, which is, of course, their ally. And, you can't attack North Korea because they've got nukes. Is that what we want? We want to be held hostage by these maniacs that talk about how badly they want to die? No, we got to get rid of them.
Jeffrey Lichtman, we're going to end it there. It is always a treat to talk with you, my friend. Thank you for staying up late with us. I'll look forward to our next conversation.
Thanks for having me, as always, Frank.
Thank you. If you want to comment on any portion of our conversation, feel free to do so. 646-720-0635. That's 1-646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.